Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of this very special, powerful and poignant evening tonight. And I want to be able to see you as well. So I'm just going to scooch over, find a little spot here. I would also like to thank Laura and Amy for inviting me, and again thank our wonderful panelists for their great work, of which we're going to speak a little bit further on. Owen, I wanted to just speak with you a little bit to start about the inspiration for your film. Now, words hold a lot of power, and there's especially greater power in putting a name to a feeling, putting a name to a thought, a desire, an oppression. And we have lists of names that we see globally that are memorial walls of people who have lost their lives, of the fallen, of people who have, to some degree or other, each particular nation has held in respect and esteem. And oftentimes when we hear certain names, images are conjured and emotions are brought up. Names such as Gandhi, names such as Martin Luther King or Oprah for some of you. So I wanted to ask you on that note, what was it that brought you to this place of focusing your film on this topic matter?
Back at that time when I was working on this film, I was peripherally involved in Occupy Toronto, not staying in the park, but I was around doing some media support for that, and through that and its connections with the G20 defense movement was really how I got involved in this particular subject matter. As to the names that were being sort of, in a sense, commemorated there in that video, that really came about out of the fact that this was a movement for solidarity with people who were facing political persecution stemming out of the G20. So the emphasis on those names was really in solidarity with the people who are facing political repression, and also to reflect the solidarity of the movement itself around which the video is based.
I wanted to ask you, Aliyyah. Now, your film, PASAN, that we saw tonight was very enlightening. In a way, I think that perhaps as a general public, we may not have that much information about PASAN or have even heard of it and what it does as an organization. Can you tell us a little bit more of what you have learned through the making of the film about this organization, the history, for example, where it operates? I noticed there was a statement about the provincial head, but beyond Ontario, do they do work elsewhere?
Yeah, PASAN got started they've been running for about 20 years, so, and I mean, they started because there was a need for it in Canada, so they work federally with federal prisoners as well as provincial prisoners as well. I actually volunteer with PASAN still to this day, and they are constantly writing grants to get funding. So they're not really funded by the government, obviously, and they do have to work with the Canada Corrections side by side, but like they obviously keep like a distance also because they do go inside prisons and work with prisoners. They have to build up a certain amount of trust with the prisoners, so that's why they tend to get a lot of their funding from like outside sources, like outside funding, like private funders, whatever else. So,
Amar, I just wanted to say, not in the stomach for me personally while watching your film. The tension and the emotional chokehold was quite visceral. I wanted to share that, first of all. I'm just going to ask you to begin speaking about the film with just a little bit of background with regard to terminology. If you can just give us some information as to what is a security certificate so that we can all have at least that foundation of understanding.
Sure.
Thank you.
So a security certificate, which I didn't know about before I made this film, is a legal device that exists in Canadian immigration law, not really in criminal law, that allows the Canadian government to hold any non-citizen indefinitely without charging them with a crime. And right around the time of 9/11, 5 Arab Muslim men in Canada were held under a security certificate. They spend between 2.5 and in some cases nearly 8 years in jail without being charged. And the evidence against them in these cases is kept secret. It's very similar to the way a Guantanamo trial is sort of executed with secret hearings, very similar to what they call a military tribunal in the United States. So the legislation itself has existed for a very, very long time, since the 70s. But right around the time of 9/11, right before that, it started being used almost exclusively on Arab men. People who have come to this country either as refugees or permanent residents. And it's become, for obvious reasons, a topic of a lot of controversy, I think. And it's gone through several evolutions over the last decade, which I can talk about as we go on, but that's basically what the legislation is.
And where does it fall within or outside the parameters of our Charter of Rights? Is it constitutional?
It was seen as constitutional for about 30 years. It's always been a way to remove somebody that the Canadian government saw as a danger very quickly. It's essentially a deportation order. Now, the obvious problem with these cases is that you're labeling somebody a terror suspect and then trying to deport them to a place where they're almost certainly going to be tortured, if not killed. So that goes against our obligations as a member of the United States Charter Against Torture. And so the men and their families ended up in this legal limbo where Canada wanted to deport them, but rightfully couldn't. And so these cases just kept going on and on and on. And in 2007, the security certificates were found unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of Canada by a 9-0 unanimous decision. But they were given 1 year to amend the law, and they changed it just enough to make it constitutional, at least for the time being. And the change they made was that there's now a lawyer known as a special advocate who, acting on behalf of the accused person, can see the secret evidence that this person is being held on. Now the problem with it is they can't communicate with the person being detained about what that evidence is. So it's as simple as me defending Aliyyah saying, I can't ask her, they say you were here on this date, were you here, can you prove you weren't? They can't even have that conversation. So you're essentially defending somebody without having any conversations with them, which is pretty much the same as not being able to defend them at all, as far as I'm concerned. So obviously it has serious, serious problems. And Mohammed and Sophie Harkat, who are subjects for the documentary, one of the subjects for the documentary that we're making right now, they're in the process of launching a new constitutional challenge over the next little bit. So this new law, which has been in existence since 2008, is going to be challenged, and hopefully it's found unconstitutional again. So.
Thank you. Right, I just wanted to ask you about Ahmed. I know, watching this little boy being thrusted into this situation, at least for me, was very emotional. So do you happen to know, with regard to using a minor in such a format as, inside an active interrogation that's supposed to be an interview, but clearly was thrust upon them with a lot more force than if it were merely an interview. So for a child to be put in that kind of situation, is that legal? Or again, under the security certificate, are there special laws that...
Well, I think that was obviously inappropriate what CSIS did in that situation. Mm-hmm. The real situation is actually a lot more absurd than the film. So what happened was that the agent that was the translator actually fell asleep in real life, and you could hear him snoring on the tape that they made. The problem is I couldn't put that in the movie because as soon as people heard that or read that in the script, they started laughing, and I couldn't have laughing in that moment. So it was actually a strange situation of real life being too absurd for the movie, which I didn't think was possible. But so CSIS denied, they never denied that Ahmed was asked to translate, but they denied threatening Mr. Jabala, they denied threatening him with deportation, offering him bribes in the form of, a home of their own, those kinds of things. And obviously the tape proved that Mr. Jabala was credible and CSIS was not credible. So his first certificate was quashed just a few months after he was arrested. And he was arrested again a few months later on, and this is a quote, a reinterpretation of the same evidence. So a security certificate is not like a normal criminal case. There's no double jeopardy law. Once you're found innocent, once it's quashed, they can just rearrest you all over again. So that's what happened to Mr. Jabala. He's actually on his third certificate now. So.
Owen, I wanted to just ask you to tell us a little bit more about the organization that you have founded, the Liberation Cooperative organization, and the projects that you have been involved with and are currently working on?
I qualify that by saying co-founded because there are a lot of other people involved, but what we do is we're an independent media training and production organization. Our main chapter is based in Nairobi, Kenya, and it really grew up out of a working class, very marginalized community in Nairobi called Mathare. I don't know if anybody has heard of Mathare here or no, but it's the people from Mathare describe it as a slum, and it has about 300,000 as residents, more or less. So what we do over there is do video trainings and production work. We produce this magazine, which is hot off the press here in Toronto, and there are copies available over there if you want to after the event. And we're working in photography as well. Over here we've also worked with a number of activist and community organizing groups around Toronto to do video trainings specifically and productions such as the one that you've seen. So our concept is really to make sure that people have these skills to actually tell their own stories and present their own struggles and get that information out to as broad an audience and as engaged an audience as possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Aliyyah, can you tell us about Good Evidence and the work, films, the organizations that you work on?
No, we just left, but because there. I can speak a little bit. I don't know if no one wants to maybe speak a bit more about it, but I mean, Good Evidence is a non-for-profit organization that works with other non-for-profit organizations to make videos for them. And I was part of the one for PASAN, and I know they're trying to get funding right now to go to South America to make a few more videos for them. I don't know if you want to just say a few words about it. I don't know if I really articulate that very well, but sure.
Yeah, I mean, the organization, like Aliyyah is saying, we work with other. I'm a board member with the organization, as well as a sort of a chair for the production department. And our objective is to create videos that really just focus on the work that other organizations are doing elsewhere in the world to combat harmful representations, and kind of also create a community of engagement with these ideas, share these ideas, encourage people to reach beyond monetary donations and engage with issues, either whether they're halfway across the world and they can learn from experiences and ideas from them, from others, or how they can kind of address the issues that they care about in their own neighborhood and their own communities. So similar to Liberation, actually, we're interested in how we can kind of work together, but we're not providing production skills per se, but we're just showcasing the work that's happening on sort of small scale community levels. So you can check out our website, goodevidence.com. You can see more work and spread the word, really. Yeah. Facebook, all that stuff.
As a female and as a filmmaker, can you talk a little bit about that, please? And the challenges perhaps that you may have faced, or has it opened doors for you? Any thoughts? I mean, with regard not only to your work with Good Evidence and with Hot Dogs, but just in general.
I don't know, I think in general it's really hard to be a filmmaker. It's a lot of work, you have to be really ambitious and like work really hard to make the work you want to make. And being a female, I don't think it makes it any harder. So I can't really speak about that being like a separate thing, I think. But for me, I don't think it's either open doors for me or anything. It's just I work as hard as anyone else, I think, to work, to make films and to make the films I want to make, and to keep working on the projects I want to work on. Like the last one I was for the Legal Network of Canada, and like I worked pretty hard on those videos.
Amar, would you like to tell us about your current project now?
Sure, yeah. So Noah and I, a few years passed after I made The Good Son, and I wasn't sure if I was going to sort of revisit security certificates as an issue in a film again. And after 2007, when the law was found unconstitutional, all the detainees were released under house arrest. These house arrest conditions were really, really tough on the families. They were really, really strict, the strictest in Canadian history. And they were really strict to the point where one of the men, Mohammed Majub, actually asked to be returned to prison. Like, he actually said that the stress that this was causing his kids was too much for him. So at that point I started to really get emotional about this issue again, and I started to contemplate making a documentary about it. So for the last 2.5 years, we've been producing a documentary called The Secret Trial 5 that focuses on the human impact of security certificates in all 5 cases, and in particular on the families themselves, because that's a story we don't really hear. Security certificates have been in the media quite a bit, but the personal side of it is never really covered by the media. So we've been working on this project for 2.5 or so years now, and we've been doing it entirely independently and raising money through sort of grassroots means. So we really appreciate an opportunity to show sort of like our crowdfunding video trailer to this audience. And we want to encourage people to sort of get behind the film, but also get behind our subjects and get behind the issue of security certificates. I mean, this is something that has been around for a long time, and most Canadians don't even know that it's done in Canada. Most Canadians don't even know that we had a prison built here that the human rights community refers to as Guantanamo Bay North, that was specifically built for Muslim prisoners in Kingston. So these are things that we kind of want to change, and our attempts are sort of to make this issue a little bit more mainstream, so that we can have an honest discussion about whether these are things we agree with in our society or not. So yeah, thanks for letting us show the trailer.
I just want to quickly throw something in there, just because this is sort of the wrap up, but I'm sure we do still have like a lot. I understand like the way these things work and running out of time and all that jazz, but I'm sure we do still have, there is a potential for audience questions, and there is obviously more dialogue that should happen between the 4 of you. So I would just encourage that to still happen somehow, like, whether it's via email or or if we consider setting up another forum for this to take place in some capacity. I just wanted to encourage that. And thank you again all for coming.
And if I could maybe just jump in briefly to say that LCO is going to be organizing a sort of forum that we're calling the Indie Media Exchange, which will probably be happening toward the end of November, maybe November 24th is a potential date. So if you're interested in more information, this idea of networking between people interested in independent media organizations and building solidarity between our projects, put down your information there and you'll be on our mailing list.
One more announcement, just in relation to what Amar was talking about. There's some flyers here about Guantanamo North, specifically about what security certificates are, and the case of Mohammed Majub. And then there's, of course, some Secret Trial 5 stuff here, and there's also a petition to sign against security certificates. So if you haven't signed it yet, I would encourage you to sign it and take the information.
أحمد شو عم بيقول؟
Tell him to think about that, Ahmed.
أحمد خبرني شو عم
You
بيقول.
tell him to think about what would happen if he were taken away. Ask him if he's willing to pay that price. And ask yourself, Ahmed, are you willing to let him pay that price?
أحمد حكي معك طلع في أمي.
You have to convince him, Ahmed.
No!
You have to do it for the sake of your family.
No!
Hi, my name is Amar Walla, and this is a clip from my short film The Good Son, which I made a couple of years ago while I was a film student in Toronto. The film is based on a true story about a 12-year-old boy who was asked to translate for his father as Canadian authorities interrogated him in their home. That boy's name is Ahmed Jabala, and he is the son of Mahmoud Jabala, a father of 6 who spent over 5 years in Canadian prison without ever being charged with a crime. How's that possible? You see, Mr. Jabala was held under something called a security certificate, which is a legal device by which the Canadian government can detain and or deport non-citizens that are deemed a threat to national security. However, what makes them controversial is that they allow for indefinite detention with no charges and secret evidence, meaning neither the accused nor their lawyers can see the evidence being used against them. Now, if you're like me, this sounds more like something out of a Kafka novel than an actual Canadian policy. But it's real. Over the past 10 years, 5 Muslim men have been held under these security certificates. These are men with wives, children, friends, parents, and after spending over 25 years in jail combined, none of them has ever been charged with a crime. These men are the Secret Trial 5. Now, as my short film had its festival run, audiences generally reacted like this.
I was very disturbed because I think as Canadians, we like to think, that's the kind of thing that the Americans do, and we don't do that sort of thing.
I felt enraged and very, very angry. How dare this happen in my country? How dare this happen here?
I was approached by angry audience members at every screening, all of whom wanted to know more about this family and more about security certificates. They couldn't believe this was happening in Canada. I realized then just how little people knew about this issue, and the best way to answer all their questions was to make a documentary. As soon as I told people my plan, several friends offered their help, so we formed a small crew eager to tell this story. There was just one question.
How are we going to fund this project?
And that's where you come in. We're going to fund this film through your contributions. This is called crowdfunding, and it basically means that we will use social media and word of mouth to help raise the money for this film through small donations while we raise awareness about this issue.
Anyone, anywhere can become a producer of The Secret Trial 5 by donating to the production and spreading the word.
On our site, secrettrial5.com, you can read more about security certificates, our subjects, and us, the filmmakers.
You can also watch Amar's short film, The Good Son, and if at the end you'd like to know more, then click the donate button and help us make this film.
Check out our donation page for info on what you get for your donation. The more you give, the more you get. It's that simple.
But that's not all. Throughout the course of production, we will turn to you for creative input.
From selecting our poster, suggesting a final title, even submitting your own artwork.
You will be a creative partner in this film from beginning to end.
For the record, security certificates were deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in 2007, yet as of November 2010, only 2 of the 5 certificates have been quashed.
3 of the men and their families still live under some of the strictest house arrest conditions in Canadian history, including wearing a tracking bracelet, cameras in their homes, and being followed by government agents on family outings.
In fact, in March of 2009, Mohammed Zeki Majoub actually asked to be returned to prison, saying that the house arrest conditions were too damaging to his family.
We want to make one thing clear. We are not claiming that the Secret Trial 5 are innocent. That's not the point.
The point is that holding people without charge for years at a time and keeping evidence secret is fundamentally unjust and un-Canadian.
At the very least, we believe that this is an issue people want to know more about. Prove us right. Help us tell the story of the Secret Trial 5.